Hi, I'm Coach Tracy Knight, and in this video, we're going to be talking about types of conflict and how conflict escalates over time. So by the end of this video, what I'm really hoping is that you will see that conflict really doesn't have to be war, only if you allow it to be. So let's jump in. So first and foremost, there are 6 stages of conflict. The question is, what causes it to escalate? We have a mild difference, then it goes to a disagreement, a dispute, a campaign, litigation, and then all-out war. And if you've watched any of the other videos, you know that I wholeheartedly believe that conflict does not have to be war. In other words, it doesn't have to get to stage 6. But what's happening at each stage is quite simply, it's not that conflict is the problem, it's the unaddressed conflict that causes it to escalate. So at a mild difference, what we're really looking at is just a different perspective exists between 2 or more parties. Then when we escalate to a disagreement, now we are expressing opposing opinions. And what most people have not successfully done is learned how to depersonalize someone else's opinion, someone else's perspective, to allow them to have that opinion. And you do not have to agree. No, you don't have to agree. It's just their opinion. The question is, can you find a common ground in the middle? If you can't, what happens is it moves to dispute. So now each party is then defending and justifying their position. Sometimes this happens because they feel like at the disagreement stage, they haven't been really understood. Not just heard, which is auditory, as we talked about in other videos, but really understood, respected. Even if you don't agree, most people really want to be listened to and understood. So we're at dispute, people are defending and justifying their position. The next thing that happens is they launch an all-out campaign. This is where they start to recruit allies and persuade them to see it their way. Because really what they're asking is, am I crazy? Can't you see that this is logical? When the truth is both sides have valuable perspectives. But in the campaign, we start to gossip. We start to rally the troops. We start getting people on our side and getting them to agree. Not to mention, if you have other people who have a personality conflict with this person, they will target them first. The next thing that happens is litigation. So at the litigation stage is where a formal complaint and an investigation is launched. This is when HR gets involved. And then finally, we get to war. And in this case, the mindset is we destroy the opposition and we win at all costs. What becomes more important is winning and being right rather than finding resolution. So the question that I'm really posing here is for you. Where does your current situation fall on that continuum of conflict escalation? And I really want you to reflect on what could you have done to maybe prevent it from getting to that stage? What could you have personally have done? And then finally, how willing are you to participate in really creating a mutually beneficial resolution? Because really committing to the process of resolution, which is an attitude, it is a choice, is what is needed in order to de-escalate the situation. Now, the next thing we want to talk about is there are 3 different types of conflict that I want you to pay careful attention to, because at this point, we can start to think about what really caused this conflict, like we're starting to get to like what's the root of it. So the 3 different types of conflict are inner conflict, interpersonal conflict, and group conflict. So with inner conflict, what is basically happening is the conflict is happening inside of you, but it sometimes can be projected onto other people. This is where you start to question your integrity, values, or ethics, or you're bumping up against them. Typically, it's about doing the right thing versus what you want to do or what someone is asking you to do. So it can look like family time versus work demands. Like maybe you've committed to being at home more often, but your supervisor has asked if you could lead a project and it's going to take more time. Now you have an inner conflict. Or doing what's right versus staying comfortable. Like maybe your supervisor is asking you to step into something that requires more of you. Maybe it's even a promotion, right? And and you're struggling to figure out whether or not you should stay in a comfortable place or do what is best for your own growth. That's an example. Or speaking up versus staying silent. Maybe you see something that's going on, but you don't really want to get into the mess, so you have an inner conflict as to whether or not you should speak up or stay silent. These are all inner conflicts, but we can easily project them onto other people. The next type of conflict is a group conflict. We see this a lot in organizations where we have different departments that are pitted against each other. It's kind of an us-them mentality. So this can happen where you have departments that are pitted against each other, or you have your board versus the executive director of an organization, or team rivals or disagreements. You also have employees versus managers. And then last but certainly not least are generational conflicts, where you might have baby boomers versus millennials or Gen X versus Gen Z. And so in these disagreements, what is happening is we are finding our power by cleaving to whoever the group is instead of really trying to resolve the conflict. The last one I want to talk about is most common, and it's interpersonal conflict. This is where two or more people have a conflict that can be caused by any number of things. Things like personality clashes, leadership style clashes, culture clashes, value clashes, breakdown in communications, and sometimes it's even workplace policies or practices that create conflict. And basically what's happening with these interpersonal conflicts is it's just really creating a misunderstanding. We have differing assumptions or maybe even different goals. So just trying to get clear about the underlying issue in that interpersonal conflict can resolve everything. Before we close out this video, though, I didn't want to do this without talking about the personality or work style clashes. And oftentimes when we look at different personality types, it guides how we work together or how we work in opposition to each other. So oftentimes I will use various personality assessments to really look at what type of style you naturally gravitate to in this stage of your life, because it's not fixed. It can evolve over time. And so I want to illuminate to you 4 different personality styles and the work styles that go with them. The first one is the blue personality type. This type of personality is relationship oriented and they value harmony over everything. What they bring to the workplace is really empathy and support and collaboration. They are great for helping to build the team, but they can also create a sense of frustration because a lot of times they don't want to have difficult conversations and they don't take feedback very well. Many times they will personalize it as if it hurts their feelings, which could be true just based on how the feedback is given. But since the blue tends to be more sensitive when it comes to taking feedback and they prioritize harmony over results, they tend to take that personally. Okay? The next personality type is the green. This is the person in the office that is very logical. I like to think of them as like the mad scientists. They really value competence. They love problem solving. They bring analysis and objectivity to the team. However, the thing that frustrates their team members is they can sometimes appear very cold and they can forget about the people. They also can be very critical, overly focused on facts, and slow to make decisions while asking a lot of questions. So that in and of itself can trigger people, because sometimes when the green is asking a lot of questions, it's to gather information for the purposes of problem solving, but they don't say it that way. They're just very inquisitive. And so that can sometimes make people feel like they're questioning their competence. The next one is the gold. The gold personality type, which is humorous to me. They always think, why isn't everyone a gold, right? Well, the gold is that person in the office that loves order and loves accountability. We need our golds because they are the people who put all of the pieces in place. They are very process oriented. And so they love reliability. They are very reliable. You can count on them. If they say that they're going to do something, they're going to be there to do it. They're very organized and they follow through on things. They love for things to be completed before moving on to the next task. However, they can frustrate relationships in the workplace because they do bring rigidity, control, and a resistance to change and new approaches. They also are very much driven by perfectionism. And so the perfectionistic part of their personality wants for things to be right. It wants to be done in a certain way. And that can be very frustrating because there's 7 billion people on the planet and there are many different ways of getting at things. While at the same time, we do have policies, bylaws, and procedures in place for us to follow so that we can create order within the workplace. But this in and of itself is a delicate balance. Last but certainly not least, hello me, is the orange personality. This is the personality that loves freedom and loves getting results. Now, they bring a lot of energy, vibrancy to the team. They're very adaptable and they're very innovative. They are front facing and they love to be out front, making things happen. They do very well in changing circumstances, which can work as an advantage and a disadvantage to them because the frustration that they bring to the team is their impulsivity, resisting rules and structure. So you know that's going to rub the gold the wrong way. Overlooking details, quick to change direction without bringing other people along with them, and bypassing processes. They also can be highly competitive in the work environment. That can work as a pro or a con. The point here is your orange is the person who is great at leading change, but what they don't like is to consistently follow through with the same exact thing over and over and over and over again. So as you can see, these work styles show up in many different people within the office. So the next time when conflict occurs, I want you to ask yourself, is it possible that you're not dealing with a difficult person, but you are simply dealing with a different way of thinking, a different way of communicating, and a different way of working? So I hope that this video segment has helped you really begin to get an idea of how conflict takes place. It escalates over time, especially when it goes unaddressed, and the different types of conflict styles.